Well, hi, yes, hello, come in, make yourself comfortable. You found it. It's another edition of Live from My Office. Now, you wouldn't have to look if you subscribed, and I hope you will, wherever you get your podcasts, say, like Apple Podcasts or possibly Bob's Podcast Hut, wherever you get your podcasts, CochranShow.com, Spotify. Just make sure you subscribe or like or follow, whatever button they ask you to pop. Hit it for us, won't you? Because that means you'll get every episode of Live from My Office. Today, Dr. Kevin Most on a vaccination update. What is going to win the vaccine race? Which of the companies is leading the pace? What can we believe in? Oh, speaking of believing, did you see the Trump show is back? Donald Trump took to the podium yesterday. Now, he didn't invite Dr. Fauci, and he didn't invite Dr. Birx. Dr. Birx was actually in the hallway. I don't know if she had a timeout or what was going on there. But big news, folks. Trump says you got to wear a mask. That's right. Donald Trump encouraged people to wear masks, to stay apart where possible, and to avoid packed bars. He said he carries a mask with him, and he puts it on when he's in the elevator. That's right. Donald Trump says you should wear a mask, which is going to make your excuse for not wearing a mask a lot more difficult if you always believe Donald Trump would say don't wear a mask, because in fact he said wear a mask. Oh, by the way, he also said this.
We are in the process of developing a strategy that's going to be very, very powerful. We've developed them as we go along. Some areas of our country are doing very well. Others are doing less well. It will probably, unfortunately, get worse before it gets better. Something I don't like saying about things, but that's the way it is.
Now, when he says it'll probably get worse before it gets better, you may think he's talking about his complexion or his use of grammar or his lack of grammar. But the fact is, no, he is talking about the coronavirus, and he's admitting it's a problem. And again, if you always wanted to say it was a hoax, and now Donald Trump is saying it's not a hoax, I don't know who you're going to call, because Chuck Woolery changed his number. Look, it's good news that the president is saying wear a mask, because regardless of how I feel about him, he's the president of the United States, and saying wear a mask could make a difference with people. And yeah, he should have done it a long time ago, but that's a pointless argument. That's a political argument. Let's stick with reality. Wear a mask. The droplets that you spew, and trust me, we're all a big bunch of spewers, those are blocked in large part by a mask. Is it perfect? No. But you're not going to suffocate. It doesn't work that way. And if you're so upset about wearing a mask in public that you have difficulty breathing, you got to stay home. You're not really fit to be out in public. So for the sake of the rest of us, wear a mask. I'll wear a mask for the sake of the rest of you. It's just being a decent person. That's all. All right, Dr. Kevin Most updates us on the vaccination race. One note, Dr. Kevin Most and I spoke on Sunday morning, July 19th. So depending on when you're listening to this, there may be some other news that's come up, but you got a lot of great big picture information here, which is extremely relevant. Take notes. There might be a competency exam when we're done. You know how popular those are now. Let's get to it. Dr. Most discusses vaccinations and vaccines as only he can on Live from My Office. We continue on Live from My Office. This is the new Live from My Office, and Dr. Kevin Most. We're now, I think you can tell it's officially a podcast. Doesn't it have that kind of podcast feel? Isn't it way different than what we've done before?
Yes, this is way different.
And today, Doc, I want to get an update on where we are with the vaccinations, maybe do a vaccine 101 as well. But I saw a disturbing statistic this morning. I know you're aware of this, but I wasn't. Maybe most people aren't. Yeah, I guess it logically makes sense. But the burden on charities who aren't getting the typical contributions that they get is going up and is going to continue to go up in this COVID era we're in, and with all the people we know that are unemployed. But the volunteers for charities, far and away, are 60 and older. And I guess it makes sense because they're older and they have time to do it, and they're more dedicated probably at this point in their life to help others than they've ever been. But if you're 60 or older, and you're needed as a volunteer, you're probably not going out now, right?
Yeah. And you hit it spot on, right? You have all these people that were wildly successful during their careers, have decided that they want to get away from work, but still want to give something back to society. And, they fill the volunteer ranks. We have not had volunteers at the hospital, for months, mainly because they're a vulnerable population. We want to make sure we're protecting them as much as we possibly can. That being said, we certainly miss them. We miss them all the time. I could tell you the volunteers that I would see every day with a big old smile on their face, and they add a lot of value. They do a lot of services in the hospital, even delivering the newspaper to patients each day. Those patients look for that smiling face and being brought the newspaper, delivering flowers, doing our mail. I mean, the amount of stuff that they do and the interactions that they have with us makes it difficult for us to bring them back. But certainly we want to, because that's their social system right now. That gives them some sense of value and some sense of worth. So we really want to make sure we get them back as soon as we can, as safely as we can.
Well, I would suppose you probably have noticed how much work they did. Not that you short-sold them before, but you've probably noticed how much work they did that isn't being done now or has to be picked up by other very busy people at the hospital.
Oh, unbelievable. Sometimes I don't think many of us knew what they did. Some of us assumed that all they did were these specific things, but we put them in positions where they could feel that they were actually using their mind and working and interacting with people and doing things. And I think if you look at the scope of what volunteers do and have done, and hopefully will do soon, it's a lot broader than we would think.
All right, so let's do a little vaccines 101, if you would, here. And you can tell me if it's similar with new prescription drugs. Why does it take so long for a vaccination, traditionally, to go from lab to market?
Yeah, so you have to remember what we're doing is we're taking a foreign body and injecting it into your body, and then hoping that your body gives the response that we want out of it. So if you just even take that concept and say, wow, all right, now I at least have a little bit of an idea. I inject something in. So one, I want to make sure that it's safe, that it's not going to do any harm to you, that it's not going to have any untoward effects towards you. And then two, I have to make sure that it gets the response I want, that it produces the results that I want. And then three, we have to make sure that we have it at the right dose to get the volume of response we want. In other words, I can give you a low dose of a vaccine. It might give you a response, but it's not going to be a response big enough to protect you. So when we look at the history of vaccines, the fastest vaccine we ever made was measles, and that took 4 years. But you can look at vaccines now and say, why don't we have a vaccine for Ebola? Why don't we have a vaccine for HIV? Why haven't we had a vaccine for the common cold, over the last 30, 40, 50 years, while we've had vaccinations?
So the idea is you take that foreign body, you put it into my body, and that turns on the immune system to fight it?
Right.
When it
so
works?
What we do is we take a piece of the virus, and we know that it's foreign. So we take a piece of that virus that cannot replicate, cannot give you the viral infection. It's like, just a chunk of it. We then put that in, and now the body says, wait a second, I don't know what you just put in me, but it's not supposed to be in me, and I don't like it, and it's foreign. So I am going to make antibodies to eliminate it. The body then remembers that and says, wait, if I ever see this again, I am going to make antibodies to fight it off. So that's the concept of the vaccine, is that you teach the body to look for this virus or a portion of this virus or something on the virus that it can identify to make the response to fight off the infection.
Why does it take so long? What's a phase 1, phase 2, and a phase 3?
Yeah. So one, we're going to be extremely careful, right? So for phase 1, we think we have something that is somewhat safe. But what we're going to do now is we're only going to inject it in a small number of people. And it really depends on the volume of people, depends on what you're trying to do. So the phase 1, for the vaccine, results that came out this week, it was given to 45 people, all ages between 18 and 55, all healthy. 15 of them were given 25 micrograms, 15 were given 100 micrograms, and 15 were given 250 micrograms.
So what you're looking for there is effect on those patients and in coordination with the dose they have, and that can give you the collective knowledge on whether or not you can move to phase 2?
Correct. So we're looking at the safety plus the immune response. Did it cause any undue harm besides, the typical muscle aches, headache, chills, fever, fatigue kind of thing? Did it cause anything else? Did it cause anything else in the body to occur? If the side effect profile is there so we know it is safe, then we look at the response and say, did it give us a big enough response? Did the individuals who got 25 micrograms have a good response, or at least as good a response as the one who got 250? Then we know we can go down to the lowest dose possible, where we're going to have the lowest number of side effects and still have the outcome for antibodies that we need to protect ourselves and give ourselves immunity.
And that takes time because you inject me, you've got to wait to see what the response is with me and with the other patients before you can move to phase 2. So you've got that time block. Add that now to phase 2 where you move on. Now you're talking about what, several hundred patients?
Correct. Phase 2 is 300 adults. It started in June. So it's interesting. When we talk about these vaccines being fast-tracked, they certainly are. The New England Journal printed the peer-reviewed, so they went in and reviewed the results of this vaccine. That came out on Wednesday. So that was the middle of July. Phase 2 started on June 1st. So they went to phase 2 before phase 1 had actually even been reviewed. So you can see the fast-tracking now of we have the initial data. We think it looks good. We're going to let them peer review. But in the meantime, we're going to now extend this to 300 people. And those results won't be in now for probably a month and a half. But yet we're going to start phase 3 next week with 30,000 people.
So the overlap continues because the labs have done the work, and before they get the approval, they feel even though they wouldn't normally do it this way, it's safe to move to the next level. Is this the Moderna vaccine or is it one of the others?
Well, this is Moderna, but the same thing is happening with AstraZeneca. I mean, we have 23 vaccines that are now in trials. You're hearing about Moderna because they were the first one to publish, but You'll start seeing publishing here quite a few over the next month or so. I mean, there's 200 companies in this race for the vaccine, and 23 of them are already in clinical trials right now. So I think, AstraZeneca and probably Moderna are going to be the two leaders. They seem to have a couple of weeks, if not a month or two, on some of the other companies. So we're going to start to see their results quickly.
So phase 2 moves to phase 3. What is the difference between those two?
Well, now phase 3 will only go with one dose. So they've decided what they did is when they looked at these doses, they found that 25 micrograms, it did well, not a lot of side effects, and the side effects were pretty minor. Those who got 100 and 250 got the results that we wanted and still had side effects that were not terrible to a point where we had to stop the study. They had fatigue, they had chills, they had headache, they had muscle aches, but it didn't get to a point where they had a decrease in a white blood cell count, or that they caused anemia, or that it caused something else that we said, this is not safe. So now you're going to see everyone is going to get the exact same 100 microgram dose. Now, the downside of this right now, I'll tell you one more upside before I tell you the downside. The upside of it is we know individuals who have had the illness and survived. So we've tested their antibodies, and we test to see how much antibody they have from the illness itself giving them antibodies. We now have tested the vaccine, at least in this initial group, and have found that those individuals who got the 100 micrograms and 250 micrograms had a better immune response. In other words, made more antibodies than they did for the individuals who actually were infected. So that's a very positive.
It's a huge deal.
Correct. It's a huge deal.
So phase 3, who gets the drug at that point?
Well, phase 3, now they're going to go to 30,000 people. But now that
But those are all people that have agreed to be tested, 30,000?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They had 50,000 people who have signed up for any one of the vaccine trials. So it's not like we have a shortage of people willing to jump in and help here. Now, the downside is it's not just one shot. It's 2 shots. So that's going to be a little bit of it'll slow things down a little bit. One, you hope that the side effects aren't too bad, that after the person gets the first shot, they say, I'm not going back for the second one. But they actually showed that second booster a month later is really the one that makes the biggest impact.
All right. And then phase 4 is you go to full production and administration?
Yep. So once phase 3 is done, they'll go to full production. Now, the interesting thing, you have companies like Moderna and AstraZeneca who have said, you know what, we like our results so far. We're going to full production right now, so that by the time these results come out, they will have already produced about 100 million to 200 million doses. So they're going to have the vaccine ready. Now, if phase 3 doesn't play out the way that they hope it does, they just wasted a whole lot of production. If it does play out the way we all hope it does, once those results are out, they will have product, they will have vaccine ready to go. That's why we got this compressed timeline where we might have a vaccine by late December, January, February.
Now, we in the general population consider the government restrictions sometimes just red tape, but what you're describing is a way to test something that could save lives while you don't kill people in the process of testing it. So we need to give folks a little bit of slack in the time that this takes. Oh,
absolutely. And believe me, this timeline is very compressed, but they're still doing it safely. Certainly they've overlapped phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3, which is kind of unusual. They would want to have the results reviewed before they went to the next phase, but it's been so promising. Plus the need and demand for this is going to be so high that the FDA said, okay, we're going to let you compress things a little bit here because we really do need this.
This is billions of dollars, obviously, for these companies. But I don't even know if there's a layman's way to explain this, but what is the difference in these vaccines? Is it too scientific to explain, or is there a way to communicate that?
Right. So you've seen, the schematic of the coronavirus. You've probably seen the picture of it, like a red ball with yellow
crowns
spikes
on it.
Yeah, exactly. So what each of these companies has done is they said, okay, we're going to figure out which part of the virus is going to be the most important. And they all have different ideas. Many of them have the same idea. The goal is to get what we call something called neutralizing antibody. And what happens with the neutralizing antibody is, let's say it's an antibody against one of those crown spikes, that the body antibodies attach to that crown spike. And now that prevents the virus from getting into a cell and replicating and making millions of copies. So that's the goal. The goal is, can we make the right antibody to the right portion of the virus to stop it from getting in cells, to stop it from going any further? Many different scientists have many different thoughts about which portion of the virus they're going to try to attack. And that's going to be the big thing. We know that this first vaccine may not be the golden ticket, but we're certainly hoping that it has a lot of neutralizing antibodies as we perfect the vaccine going forward.
You mentioned Moderna and AstraZeneca, and how many other companies are on the front line of this, trying to get this done?
There's 200. I hate to use the word companies, but there's 200 groups, I will say, that are working on vaccines right now. Some are universities, so some are beyond just pharmaceutical companies.
Sure.
A lot are startup companies, though, as well.
And it seems that, I don't remember if this was Oxford or the University of Chicago, but it seems that there's been a discovery in a couple of cases, not just those two places, of drugs we've used for other things. And this, I could be wrong about this, but I thought maybe a liver damage treatment was one. But this is not unusual where we find a drug we use for something else works for this. Are we getting into that area at all with this?
We are. So, and the interesting thing was when you have an illness that we don't have a playbook on, we don't have medications on, we have many brilliant scientists that are looking at the impact of the body and saying, wait a second, if this is the impact, what if we tried this drug? So we know that that's been occurring across the country. A lot of use with steroids. You saw the dexamethasone. There's now some inhaled steroid studies going on. What's happening is we're taking these anecdotal, a doctor says, oh, I had 10 patients and this medication worked. Well, you have to take the science side of it and say, okay, let's make sure that that's true. We're going to give some patients a placebo. We're going to give some patients the medication, and we're going to make sure that this actually does work. Because you don't want to run down a road saying this is the wonder drug and then find out not only is it not a wonder drug, but it does more harm than good.
The medication side of this for treatment of the condition, once people have it, we know about remdesivir, are some of the meds or potential meds that are being experimented on with, whatever the case may be. Are those being fast-tracked as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we're looking at antiviral drugs. So, remdesivir came out of the box pretty hot and has done fairly well. It's not a cure. It's kind of like a Tamiflu. If you think
lessens
about
the
people
symptoms.
who take, correct, shortens the duration, lessens the symptoms. Now that's very important in this illness because it might prevent you from ending up in the intensive care unit on a ventilator. So very important, and that's what we're all looking for now is where's the oral remdesivir that we can give to the general public once we know that they're positive to shorten this duration so they can't spread it anymore. Where are those drugs that are going to allow us to treat the illness and decrease the duration of symptoms that they're contagious, which will help us slow this down even more.
Is this going to change the game going forward once we have a vaccine for this? And you've said it before, and certainly it makes sense that we're going to be living with this coronavirus, COVID-19, and we'll have vaccines. Some people will take them, some people won't, but it'll be part of our life. It's not going to go away. But does this change the game for things that develop in the future in regards to how fast vaccinations will be able to be developed? Will it permanently shorten the timeline?
Absolutely. I think we have so many learnings from this illness and just the way that it's transpired across as far as how do we use PPE? How is this spread? What about vaccine production? What about other medications? We're learning so much every single day still. It used to be, whatever I said in the morning was not good in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. Now it's at least whatever I said in the morning might be good for a couple of days. So we really know that there's a lot of education. And, unfortunately, the decision to drop out of the World Health Organization is one where I think is very short-sighted as we need information from across the world. This is not just a United States issue. And we're going to need to make sure that we are teamwork, that we're teammates for everybody in all the other countries. So, because this won't be the last one. This was a 100-year one, right? 1918, and then essentially this one are the two biggest ones. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I think you're going to start to see more and more.
We're far from out of the woods on this and unraveling not just the economy, but the effect on the economy by kids not being in school is a huge deal. It sounds ridiculous to say this, but obviously it's vitally important for kids to be in school. But kids aren't the only ones at risk. Teachers are at risk as well, and you might be able to argue more risk. Here's what we think we know in the last 30 to 60 days. Kids do get this. Kids can transfer this asymptomatically, but more kids have symptoms. Teachers are adults, and some of those are going to be part of a vulnerable population. They need to work. Plexiglass, maybe. Masks, maybe. But one of the things that's come up, Duck, and I hadn't thought about this, but it makes total sense, is how important square footage is for the school that your kid goes to so that they can actually have that social distancing. Or how about the fact that, I don't know about you, Doc, I rode a bus to school when I was a kid. Well, you can't put the same number of kids on a bus that you could before. So how are you going to get them to school? These are all things that still have to be worked out, right?
Yep. So how would you like to be the guy that has to make that decision? So I will couple that with a couple of other things. 22 million kids in this country get their main meal through the school lunch program. over 20% of child abuse cases are identified by a teacher. Over 60% of learning disabilities are identified by a teacher. So you start to add up all of the social impact as well as the future impact of this. If you look at the number of single parents who, unfortunately, in individuals of color, much higher in Blacks and Hispanics as far as single parents, 85% of those single parents work. So now, how are you going to have at-home teaching when that single parent has to go to work as well? So, boy, I mean, it's a tough place to be. It's a tough decision. But like you said, how can we get them to school safely? How can we keep the teachers safe? And that's another thing we talk about safety. Are kids safer in school than they are in some neighborhoods? And that's an absolute yes. So, boy, these are some very tough discussions and very tough decisions. And unfortunately, it's fast-tracked. Here we are in the middle of July, towards the end of July. Kids are going back to school in 6 weeks. Boy, they got a lot of decisions to make to figure out how we're going to do this safely. The footprint is absolutely true. If they say, well, let's go to a hybrid where half of them are online and half are in the classroom, you don't have twice as many teachers. So online teaching with a live teacher worked through the spring because they could do it that way. But how do you do it in the fall when you're splitting it where half the kids are in the classroom and half are online?
And then you have the ancillary issues as well, which, while they may not be as important, you got a kid who's a music prodigy who may be able to get a college education paid for. He's not able to show off his or her talents, and it comes down to self-discipline. Obviously, the same with athletics and sports. Seniors last year, juniors and seniors certainly look now like they're going to be affected in all areas of an ability to get college paid for down the road. But we have to deal with what we're dealing with right now, I guess. Focusing on how bad it could be a year from now, I guess, doesn't help anybody.
No, you're right. And if we say, hey, if this promising vaccine works out, is this just going to be a blip that we're just going to look at and say, wow, remember 2020? But we don't have those answers. There's no crystal ball right now that's going to say, hey, let's just get through these next few months and we'll be okay. Because even if we are okay and we have 100 million doses of the vaccine, who gets them first? Are we going to give them to kids first? Are we going to give them to the vulnerable population? Are we going to give them to first responders and healthcare workers? There's going to be a bigger demand than there is supply. And then you also are going to have individuals who feel that they're invincible and say, I'm not getting the vaccine. 45% of this country gets an influenza vaccine every year, but there's plenty of vaccine available. So I'm not sure how it's going to play out as we try to keep everybody safe, including kids and teachers.
And we try to keep politics out of this when you and I talk, because it's no secret how I feel about those folks in Washington. And certainly, governors and mayors around the country have done a good job of keeping this whole thing afloat and doing the right things by their communities. There's holes in that plan as well. But this really is a time, Doc, where people have to remember we're, I think, 107 days away from Election Day as of the day we tape this on July 19th. It's vitally important that you vote, because the leaders that have failed you now could be replaced, or the people that you keep in office have to be better. All this talk about, a re-election and they're acting this way because they need to be reelected. I couldn't give a shit less about whether or not a politician wins their race when you got 140,000 people soon who will be dead from this disease. So it really is, I think, a merging of the two things, science and politics here, Doc, and science has never told you more. Get out and vote.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I say leaders are not given a title. Leaders lead by action. And I tell that to my doctors all the time and all the staff at CDH. I say, you guys go out in public. You're in your community. You're in your neighborhood. They are looking to you as an expert. They are looking to see, are you wearing a mask? What are you doing? Are you not having big parties in your backyard? Are you following what all the expectations are? That's a true leader. You can give someone a title, but it doesn't make them a leader. And I think that is being shown across the country in some states and certainly on the federal level. It's
an irrefutable fact that masks can keep people from getting this. that masks by extension can save lives, and it's just not that big a deal to think about other people in the world and have them think about you, and put on a mask when you're in public and in the vicinity of other people. You don't have to wear a mask at home. You don't have to wear a mask outside if you're far enough away from people. But this shouldn't even be a discussion, Doc. And don't look to leaders to show you the way. Be a grown-up, wear a mask. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, it's so simple. People say it's an inconvenience. I have a right to do this. No, you don't. You don't have a right to not do these things that protects others from a national, an illness that, like you said, is approaching 140,000 people here in the United States. Those individuals say, I have a right, or it's a liberty of mine not to wear a mask. Those are the ones that I'd like to say, I'd like you to come up with me into our intensive care unit,
right,
and look at some individuals. I'd like to show you individuals who survive this illness, but still have so much damage to their heart, their lungs, and their kidneys that they're going to be impacted for the rest of their lives. Your selfishness is what allowed this to happen.
And everybody's got moms and dads and grandparents. The idea that we dismiss it as, well, we all got to die someday, as some do. And granted, Doc, it's a small percentage of the population that's that crass or that thoughtless. But just because somebody's old doesn't mean they're ready to go, nor should they. Let's be good to each other, maybe like never before. We just lost the great civil rights leader, John Lewis, who went through some horrific things in his life for the cause of civil rights. How about the cause of human rights? How about just the cause of decency, that we all take this nightmare year we've been under and do the right thing by other people? I really wish people would just pause and think about it.
100%. And, we learn from these people. We learn from what they have gone through. We learn from experience. And as you start to lose some of these individuals, we're losing out on that. And now we're starting to make our own history, which in many cases is unfortunate.
Yeah, I'd like to say that your generation and mine is going to leave a legacy of victory here, but we just got to remain optimistic that we're going to get there. But this isn't a thing that if you're a kid, your parents, your grown-ups, your grown-ups or grandparents have to fix. Everybody's involved with this, from little kids to the oldest people there are. I got a 90-year-old uncle in Florida who has COVID, who's fighting it every day, and he's just stubborn enough that he's probably going to win. But man, if you're so inclined, say a prayer for everybody who has been touched by this. And I don't think you could find anybody who hasn't been in one way or another, who knows somebody who's had it or knows somebody who knows somebody who's had it. We just want to get beyond this as fast as we can. The fastest way we can do that is to do what we know: social distance, wear a mask, listen to the experts, and listen to Dr. Most when he's on Live from My Office. Did we miss anything?
No, but I think, you talk about that. We should be setting examples for our kids,
yep,
too. You talk about our generation. Hey, I hate to say it, but it's handed to our generation right now. Millennials and Gen X's and, all the between us, please, listen to what's going on and try to figure out where you can fit in society and how you're going to make it. This isn't about you being able to survive an illness. This isn't about you being able to handle this without any bad long-term outcome. This is about you showing the kids, the teens, the little kids that, we're all in this together. And that's the message that we got to get across.
That's a great point, Doc. And, if you're in your teens, 20s, and 30s, and I know a lot of people like this, my daughter being one of them, tell your parents and your grandparents, hey, you put your mask on. A little family pressure from the kids and the grandkids. Put your mask on. I hope they do that as well. But anyway, Doc, as always, your message is invaluable, and I really appreciate your friendship and your time. And my best to everybody at Northwestern Medicine and Central DuPage Hospital in particular. And keep up the good work and stay safe.
You got it, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Most. Oh, one thing I haven't talked about in a while. Make sure you follow us on all of your various social media situations. I'm everywhere. I might even have a MySpace account still kicking around. But on Twitter and Instagram, it's Cochran Show. And on Facebook, Steve Cochran Show. The website, cochranshow.com. We've got you covered, coming and going, and we appreciate your support. I really do. We have a special guest on the phone, standing by. If you love to hear me get insulted, oh, you're going to love this. And if you listen to the radio show, you'll remember the old ball coach who joins me now live from wherever he is. Coach, are you really there?
Hello, Cochran.
Yeah, Coach, it's been a long time. How are you?
It's been a long time. I'm really proud of you. I'm so proud of you now. I felt bad when you got let go.
You really felt bad?
Yeah, all my emotions ran the gamut from A to B.
Really? From A all the way to B?
All the way to B, Cochran.
Well, how have you been?
But I'm proud of you.
Well,
proud of you.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Because I told you, I said I couldn't be happier. I'll be honest, could be happier because you're on now where you're talking, and my goal was to have the least amount of people listening to you, and that's where we're at.
Are you a big fan of podcasts, Coach?
Well, I don't really like Chinese food, to be honest with you. It gives me the herpes burps. I don't do it.
Hey, Coach, listen, I don't want to be pushy or anything, but just for the safety of each of us staying healthy, because you sound really healthy, we should both be wearing our masks. Are you wearing yours?
I got a mascot, Cochran.
You do? Okay, good.
I got a mascot. It's a Rydell double bar.
Oh, very nice. So it actually looks like a face mask.
You're darn right, Cochran.
Yeah. I'm actually wearing Tony Esposito's old goalie mask.
Okay, I don't know who that is. Is that one of your friends?
Tony Esposito, the great Chicago Blackhawk. You mean you only know football?
I'm a football guy, Cochran.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I have some bad news for you. It was announced hours ago. The entire NFL preseason has been canceled.
So what?
That's not a big deal.
We didn't have no preseason.
You just
like Frank would give me the schedule. He'd say, "Show up on the field on Sunday." Boom, we do the game.
Right.
Preseason. They're a bunch of idiots. I'll tell you, they ain't got. I don't want to say a bad word, but they're a bunch of sissies. Okay, because I'll tell you right now, they can't handle nothing. I remember Stanley Gas Ration Popolesky lost his head in the first quarter, and he still played through the halftime.
Stanley Gas Ration Popolesky?
God, you come on. You tell me I don't know. What's the guy's name? Frankie Popacito? What's his name? And you don't know Stanley Gas Ration Popolesky? How about Jimmy Chesterfield? Check Wiki. Do you know him?
No, I don't know those guys.
He died.
He
died. He died. Second play of the game, he died. He still made it through to the third quarter. They got nothing.
So you're saying today's players are soft?
They're soft, Cochran.
Give me a few of the nicknames of the guys that you played with back in the day.
Well, we had quite a few. Eugene Butterball Sintosky.
He loved turkey?
You probably know him.
He loved the turkey.
No, his balls were buttered.
Wow, sounds like an odd thing to do before a game, but anything to get an advantage. Anybody name the Hammer or anything else you might find in a hardware store?
No, we had Bobby Buzzsaw. I'm kind of thinking that he was okay, but it's his haircut. That's why we call him Buzzsaw.
Oh, I thought maybe like he sliced through the defense.
Oh, Cochran. You're trying to be funny. I like your comedy, Cochran. I think I'll write it down and make it funny.
I do have a note here that you once played with a guy called the Human Headache.
Oh, I did. Yeah, that kid, I'll tell you, Elroy Anderson.
Is that the guy? So then he went on to invent aspirin?
No, we call him that, Elroy Anderson. I don't even know his last name. He wasn't on the team long enough. He couldn't get out. His head hurt too much.
Well, see, there you go. So this whole year has been such a disaster when it comes to just interrupting our daily life. Has your life been interrupted?
No, they've done a thing for me. They're talking about keeping 6 feet away. I keep a whole state away.
So
don't even get near people.
So you want to avoid people at all costs. Is that a new thing, or is that?
I didn't need no pandemic to make that happen. People's is bad, Cochran.
Well, what do you do when you need to go get groceries or something like that?
I go get them.
But there's people there.
Not when I go.
What do you go in the middle of the night?
I go in the middle of the night, Cochran. I got a what do you call it? Skeleton keys.
You just
I go to the A&P. I get my stuff and I walk out.
What do you like to snack on in the middle of the night? Have you got a go-to?
Yeah, head cheese.
Really?
That's the best, head cheese. And you know what that is?
No.
I don't either. That's why I think I like it. I don't know what's in it. I don't think about it.
Very, very, very tasty. Do you find yourself having any fun these days?
Yeah, I got some fun. I usually because the kids is home now, I'll see them like a couple blocks away. And I got this BB gun. And I'll just go, hey, it's the coach. And I pick him up from about 2 blocks away.
Just sending a message.
Well, you just got to let them know that he's around.
When you said the kids are home, I thought you meant your own kids, but your own kids must be in their 60s.
I've got 4 boys.
Yeah?
Yeah, Mikey is 91. The next one is Ralph, and I think he's 85 or 86. I don't know.
Okay.
And then the twins, I ain't seen them since I left them.
Well, they're probably in their 70s. They're just youngsters.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody called me and told me.
So, all right. So, how do you feel about the Chicago Bears this season?
I think they did a lot of good things. They got some. The one thing they was lacking was speed, and the other thing was talent.
Yeah.
They needed that, and I think they needed a quarterback, and they got one of them guys.
Yep.
And then I think what's really going to help them is the pandemic.
You think it'll help them?
Yeah, because nobody had time to get ready. So if you're going to suck, who can blame you?
What about the kicker? You like the kicker?
Oh, yeah, that little guy. Pinky Tuscadero, I think is his name.
I think it's Eddie Pinky Toe.
No, I think it's what I said, Tuscadero. You don't know nothing, Cochran.
Hey, have you been listening to my podcast?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know what? You're simply a hole in the air.
So you're saying I'm an air hole?
You're just an air hole.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And as long as you're healthy, is your family, generally speaking, the people you know close to you, are they all healthy?
I don't know. I don't care. A lot of times they call me up and they go, hey, you still around? And I hang up on them. I don't even say nothing.
All right, so we're going to run out of time here because I'm tired of really talking to you. But do you have any advice for people, just in general?
Well, listen, I'll say this because I'll say it for you. Change is good. Nothing should stay the same.
Really?
It's like with you, Cochran. Like you and diapers. You got to change them often and pretty much for the same reason.
That's very, very deep. That's quite impressive. And as far as
my book, Cochran.
Oh, you wrote a book?
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Shit I'd Say to Cochran.
Well, people seem to really enjoy when you throw the insults out at me. Do you have one more before we go?
No, that was it.
Wow, I got to say, I didn't know that. It's a bit of a surprise. Well, Coach, listen, call anytime because I really appreciate catching up with you again here on Live from My Office.
Yeah. Love your show.
Stay healthy, Coach. Well, let's make sure the coach has a completely different number than the one he called to get on the show here on Live from My Office. Please remember, subscribe wherever you get this podcast, and we appreciate it. And check out CochranShow.com when you can as well. We're back later this week and into next week with a couple of cool celebrity interviews, if you will. People you know, people you haven't heard from in a while. I think you're going to like it as we continue to build this new empire of podcasting. Steve Cochran's Live from My Office.
Live from My Office is a product of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. Live from My Office is mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran, and hosted by Steve Cochran. Let us know what you think about a specific episode by leaving a comment wherever you're listening, or you can email questions and comments to thecochranshow@gmail.com. Steve is available for your corporate speaking gigs. He would love to host or MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.